The mighty Hawks have landed Josh Battle and Tom Barrass and have still got a first round and a second round pick next year, as well as pick 31 and 2 picks in the 70s going into the 2024 draft. And this video is entirely around what the Hawks do between now and the end of November. Considering I don't believe the Hawks are going to be involved in any delisted free agency pickups, I am happy to be proven wrong on that front, but considering how ruthless some teams have been in terms of their delistings, Hawthorn haven't really been ruthless in the slightest. I think they've made good decisions. Maybe one player that's been a bit stiff, but I would say stiff rather than ruthless, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I don't see the Hawks picking up any player in the delisted free agency market, so we can kind of put that one to bed. And what they do from here until draft day is, personally, I think, nothing. I don't think there is anything to gain for the Hawks to move up in the draft until draft night. Between now and that time, I think this is going to be a pretty quiet period. Sam Mitchell for now the second off-season in a row, and don't forget that Mark McKenzie and Rob McCartney deserve a whole lot of credit here as well, but the Hawks have identified their targets and gone and got them. Whilst, yes, the Hawks have seemingly missed out on a couple, Ben Mackay being one of them, Tom Barrass is definitely going to be the better option, it looks like, and Josh Battle, those two together versus Ben Mackay last year, I know which one I'd rather have, and that's definitely the coup that the Hawks picked up this year. Ethan Phillips is the player that I think we can consider a little bit stiff, but the Hawks have already still got the aforementioned Barrass and Battle. They've still got Sam Frost and Jimmy Blank as your depth pieces. Sam Frost did have some interest from St. Kilda and Sydney, but said at the best and fairest that his back is fine and he's not going anywhere, which was fantastic to see. And although Hawthorn fans were lamenting Jimmy Blank going down with an ACL injury, I found it a little bit frustrating that when Hawthorn did so well defensively, it was kind of like, yeah, you didn't need Jimmy Blank to do this, instead of the actual credit, which should have gone to Sam Frost for his amazing season, James Sicily for his ability to play back shoulder a little bit, but more importantly, the forgotten man in the media, Jack Scrimshaw, a guy who at 193 centimetres, who played as a halfback flanker for the entirety of his career, came out of legitimately nowhere, especially after the bake he got in this Sydney game, to produce a career best season. Scrimmer did something that not many defenders in the AFL could do, and that was play side shoulder against taller opponents and not really get out-muscled. I can't really think of too many games like the Hawks beyond round 7 in which Scrimmer was unbelievably beaten and made to look silly, which going into the season would have sounded like a nightmare. Even in seasons prior, 23 and 22, the idea of Scrim being in a one-on-one contest was not something that gave Hawthorn fans a lot of pause. So the key back department is fine. So Ethan Phillips, is he the victim of that? Yeah, he kind of is. Denver Granger Barrass didn't work out. Hawthorn should never pick at pick 6 ever again, because Mitch Thorpe and Bo Dowler were also pick 6s. That didn't really work out. You should just never pick at pick 6, because Jack McRae, Chad Wingard, and Gary Rowan are arguably your 3 best from a full career resume standpoint, best pick 6s ever, although guys like Ben King, Bailey Humphrey, these kind of guys can hopefully turn that around. I've got more faith in Ben than I do Bailey, but we'll see how that goes with others thrown into that mix as well. But where the Hawks stand here is that usually going into a draft, you can identify some real pieces of excitement, some really good talented pieces, or some really good best positional fits. Think of Richmond, for example, 8 picks inside the top 24. Now, you could do what I suggested in my mock draft, and that is trade up to pick 2. They don't need to do that, and by no means did I hopefully infer in that mock draft video that they were absolutely going to. I just think it makes a lot of sense. But they could also take all 8 of those picks, which means no matter of the positional need or even the talent, Richmond fans are invested in the draft. What North Melbourne do at pick 2, do they try and slide it back? Do they try and use their future first to try and get someone else? Although if it looks like they stay at pick 2, Alexander Taru is probably going to be their guy. A massive reach for mine, but they don't need a midfielder under any... So if you can't deliver the goods with Harry Sheasel, Luke Davies-Uniacke and George Wardlaw with some other depth pieces around them, you're in trouble. And considering North Melbourne have really ignored the centre-half back and centre-half forward positions in the draft of previous years, getting Taru makes a lot of sense. I hope they can use their future first, maybe in a deal with Melbourne or St. Kilda, and hopefully pick up Harry Armstrong as well. That would be a pretty insane combination, but North fans will feel pretty invested in this draft. Adelaide will because of their early picks. Melbourne, St. Kilda definitely will. And of course, the forgotten club here is a little bit Carlton, with who they take at pick 3, whether it is someone like Jagger Smith or Sid Draper. I think it's one of those two or Sam Lawler. Any of those three, but Carlton fans are automatically licking their lips. You've got what Freo and West Coast are going to do in the teens for different reasons. Who is the last of the youngsters before they try and attack their first premiership, that being Freo. West Coast traded down. Is that going to be worth it if they can pick up a Toby Trevelyan or a Xavier Lindsay at that spot? Would be elite gets for those clubs. Freo could also really be interested in Joe Berry. So you've got that level of excitement there. For the Hawks, there's none. And that even showed in the comment section of that October mock draft video. Hawthorn fans going, so who the hell are we interested in? Now, the good news around that, if anyone can identify late round talent, it's the Hawks. And ironically, Geelong, who also don't have a pick in the top 30 with their trade for Bailey Smith. But ignoring the Cats for a second, because I'm not sponsored by Cotton On or getting executive jobs like the coach is, because that's totally cool. What Hawthorn do, ironically, is not going to be positional need, I don't think. Because the Hawks don't have massive positional needs. Because if the Hawks did, we would be trying feverishly right here and now to try and move up in the draft. However, the positions that you could make a genuine argument for are going to exist at 31 anyway. Now, with no disrespect to Mitch Lewis and Harry Morrison when I say this, but those picks in the 70s right now don't matter. And the reason why I say they don't matter is that Hawthorn could do an abundance of things with them. They could package them both up and, try to move up to 65 or 66 or something like that if there's a guy left that they really like. Who that would be is way too wild to speculate at this point in time. But that 31 pick and what they could do with their future first and their future second is going to be really exciting. So let's start with what they could do. Now, the first thing that Hawthorn could do would be to trade Carlton's first round pick, which they own in that deal with the Blues, use that and either pick 31 in this draft or Carlton's second round pick to get back into this draft before pick 31, which opens up the question, how many youngsters do the Hawks want to take in this draft? Because if I'm being perfectly honest, I definitely think the answer is 3 or less. I do not think this is going to be a big draft for the Hawks in the slightest. The Hawks are not in a position where they need to go after an abundance of 18, 19-year-olds. However, I do think they are going to try and go quality over quantity, and this is the draft to do it. Super deep in a lot of good positions. Now, if Hawthorn hypothetically had have kept their pick 14 or 13, whatever they had for the Tom Barrass deal originally before that trade happened with Carlton, they were actually in quite a difficult spot because they would be a top 6 team looking at best talent available. Now, that is going to open up some interesting questions because in such a midfield heavy draft, especially at the top end, the Hawks don't need a midfielder. Now, I'm of the personal opinion that Jai Newcomb played himself into a really solid A-grade midfielder. Now, of all the A-grade midfielders in the competition, he is probably on the lower end of that tier rather than the upper echelon. I think that's pretty fair to say. And if Will Day can stay healthy, kind of the same with Mitch Lewis, look, I think he can win a Brownlow. I genuinely do. Now, it's really hard to say whether Will is going to stay fit or not, but those two together is spectacular. And in my personal opinion, Jimmy Worpel is one of the best, third best midfielders in a core you can ask for. You think of someone like North, for example, if they are going to run with Sheasel and Luke Davies-Uniacke, George Wardlaw becomes third on their depth chart, right? At this point in time, Jimmy Worpel is a better player than George Wardlaw at this point. That could very much change coming to the end of 25, but we'll wait and see. For Hawthorn's sake, their third best midfielder won a best and fairest at the age of 20, just had a career best season, and was one of the top 10 most accurate kicks, kicking inside 50. Pretty damn handy, if you ask me. Add into the fact that you've got Connor Nash there as that 196cm brute in the midfield that's so hard to move past and can play a defensive midfielder role on the likes of Marcus Bontempelli and these guys that are coming through, Cripper and the like. You've still got Cam Ward. Cam Ward, you've still got Cam McKenzie, Josh Ward. Cam Ward's a quarterback at Miami in college football. Anyway, Cam McKenzie, Josh Ward. You've still got Henry Huswaite, who's coming through as well. Adding another midfielder to that mix with all of those guys still there, that's a really big call, whether it's someone like a Xavier Lindsay, whether it's someone like a Taj Houghton, if you want to go down that path. But the midfielder forward thing doesn't really fly either, because you've got Dylan Moore, Connor McDonald, Jack Ginnivan, Luke Bruce is still hanging around, the Wizard. Definitely don't need one of those. Now, I know that I kind of went down this path last year and I was still wrong. I thought there was no way Hawthorn were drafting Nick Watson because we'd just gotten Guinea. Happy to be wrong on that. Now, I'm of the belief that Hawthorn probably did want Watson first, but they would have taken who North didn't out of Dersmer and Watson, and were one of the clubs that tried trading up for Curtin. Didn't work that way. Curtin's now at the Crows. That is what it is. However, that teen spot is super awkward. Who do you take? Toby Travalia would be really nice, but the Hawks have got enough rebounding midfielders at this point in time. They've got Blake Hardwick as that small lockdown midfielder. You've got Scrimshaw with Battle and Barrass, meaning he can play more of a rebounding role. You've got Weddle, you've got Amon, you've got MP, you've got James Sicily, who's now going to be opened up because of Battle and Barrass. Even if Sicily plays forward, there is more than enough. You've still got Chankwath Giath, who's got to come back into this side as well, somehow. You know, do you go get a wingman? But you've got Weddle, who can play on a wing, Amon, who can play on a wing, you've got Morrison, who can play on a wing, you've got Massimo D'Ambrosio, who can play on a wing. So where do you go? A tall forward at 14? Because I know a lot of Hawthorn fans are going to blame Marvior Chol for what happened in the finals because there was no Mitch Lewis there and Cole Shadir stood up. How could a 27-year-old not do the same? But again, if Mitch Lewis is fully fit, is another tall forward to go. The Hawks have also got Jasper Scaife. Where do you go from there? Now, in my opinion, I think it's down to two positions, neither of which, in my opinion, are going to be justified enough to have kept that first pick. And at pick 31, whether the Hawks move up or they don't, I think the two positions that they could target here is definitely tall forward or forward ruck. And I think the perfect players to fill that mould who are currently at 31 are Cale Gearin and Thomas Sims for that forward ruck kind of role. If you want to go the pure tall forward, the Hawks could try moving up and take a Jonty Fall, which would be really interesting. If Job Shanahan was still on the board in the mid-teens bit, that would be something that I would love, even though I feel like he's too similar to a Colsha Deer type. But hey, a man can dream, can't he? But this is so interesting for mine, because again, at 31, could you pass up the talent of a Xavier Ivisic, for example, from the Geelong Falcons? Lockie Jacques, if he's still there on the board. He doesn't fit a positional need, but bloody hell, he's talented. Could you look at someone like a Noah Mraz, who did play key forward and key defender, and have him there as a stock piece? I know the Hawks are really into Max Ramsden as well, but, you know, what do you do here? I definitely think there's going to be a toll taken. It makes so much sense to do it that way. Because of Mitch Lewis's body, you want to continually get better. Gunston is still there. He could hopefully be helping Jasper Scaife and whoever comes in afterwards. But if the Hawks stay at 31, I think Thomas Sims and Cale Gearin are the go. If they move up, I think it could be for a Job Shanahan or a Jonty Fall. And I think they'll try and use one of their late picks to just get someone on the board that they still like. In terms of late picks here, still one of my favourites is Luke Urquhart, but there's just something about him that I really like, so I'll throw his name out there as well. Now, you could think to yourself as a Hawthorn fan, is this boring because we've got no idea, or exciting? And I don't actually have the correct answer for you. And to be honest, there are times, moments, and thought exercises that I have where I kind of get to both answers. And I think that's because trading on draft night is the element. If we did have this trade pick or pick trading period that ended the day before the draft, I feel like the adrenaline would be kicking in and there'd be much more machinations that we could go through. However, considering that the Hawks could still swing some deals on draft night, who knows? But I'd be stunned if the Hawks didn't take a tall at some capacity. What do you think? Comment below, let me know. Like the video if you like the video. I know this was a lot of rambling, to be completely honest, but that's kind of where we're at with the Hawks at the moment, and I haven't done a Hawks video in a while, and I miss talking about them, so that's what I thought I'd do, wrapping the Hawks in the jumper as well. I hope you are having an amazing week. I am having an awesome week, and you deserve to have one as well. If it's your birthday today, happy birthday. Go hug a loved one, guys, because they deserve it. So do you. Look after yourselves, look after each other, calm the Hawks, and I'll see you soon.